What would happen to a husband who falsely charged his new bride with harlotry? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Deuteronomy on Walking Through the Bible.
The glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, turn to Deuteronomy 22. We're going to be reading from verses 13 to 22. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So Deuteronomy 22, beginning of verse 13. If any man takes a wife and goes in to her and detests her and charges her with shameful conduct and brings a bad name on her and says, I took this woman, and when I came to her, I found she was not a virgin, then the father and mother of the young woman shall take and bring out the evidence of the young woman's virginity to the elders of the city at the gate. And the young woman's father shall say to the elders, I gave my daughter to this man as a wife, and he detests her. Now he has charged her with shameful conduct, saying, I found your daughter was not a virgin, and yet these are the evidences of my daughter's virginity. And they shall spread the cloth before the elders of the city. Then the elders of that city shall take that man and punish him, and they shall fine him 100 shekels of silver, and give them to the father of the young woman, because he has brought a bad name on a virgin of Israel. And she shall be his wife. He cannot divorce her all his days. But if the thing is true, and the evidence of her virginity are not found for the young woman, then they shall bring out the young woman to the door of her father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her to death with stones, because she has done a disgraceful thing in Israel, to play the harlot in her father's house. So you shall put away the evil from among you. If a man is found lying with a woman married to a husband, then both of them shall die, the man that lay with the woman and the woman. So you shall put away the evil from Israel. In this lesson and the next, we're going to discuss laws under the law of Moses concerning sexual morality. While we will try to be delicate with this subject, the Bible does get into some areas that are a little more sensitive for a younger audience. So we ask that parents to assess their children's maturity level before listening to this podcast with them, although there will be some basic lessons that even children can learn. Verses 13 to 21 deals with a woman who is charged with harlotry following her wedding night. Recall back to chapter 20, to when we discussed the marriage traditions in Israel and how they differed from our own. Whereas today we have a process of engagement followed by a formal marriage, Israel had a tradition of betrothal followed by what is known as a home-taking. For us, engagements can be broken off without seeking divorce, but for Israel, betrothal was the first part of marriage, though sexual relations wouldn't occur until after the home-taking. This is why Joseph in Matthew 1 sought to divorce Mary, his betrothed, instead of simply breaking off their marriage, for they were already married. Upon the home-taking, a consummation of the marriage would take place, which means that the couple would have sex for the first time. Now, a young maiden in Israel was expected to be a virgin before marriage, though we know that not all of them were. If before the betrothal she were presented to the man as a virgin, but on their wedding night it was found that she was not a virgin, then she could be charged as being a harlot, either before the betrothal period or during the betrothal period. The penalty for this would be that after she was found guilty by the elders of the city, she would be taken before her father's house and stoned to death, for it was a disgraceful thing to be a harlot. Sexual purity for both men and women is commanded in scriptures, and as such, we as Christians should follow God's will in this matter. But of course, the man, after taking his wife home and having sex with her, might simply not desire her any longer, and so, as a way of getting rid of her so soon after the marriage, may lie and claim that she wasn't a virgin. How would the woman's innocence be proven? By the production of the bedsheet that was there on the night of consummation. For a woman, sexual intercourse for the first time might be painful or difficult, which could cause her to bleed. This blood would be present on the bedsheet and can be used as evidence of her virginity. If the blood wasn't present on the bedsheet, then she would have no evidence that she was a virgin, which could result in her stoning. Now I know that some might be listening and saying that a woman doesn't always bleed during their first sexual encounter, so a woman could still be charged unjustly and lose her life. And yes, that could be true. But we need to remember that our lives on this earth aren't all that there is. If a woman didn't play the harlot, but was walking right in the eyes of the Lord, dying only because of a lying husband, she may have lost her life, but she wouldn't lose her eternal reward because she was a faithful child of God. Sadly, it is true that sometimes innocent people lose their lives, but that isn't God's fault. It's man's for bringing false accusations in the first place. Let's though not think that God won't punish the husband who lied. A husband who behaves in this way and lies about his wife is not following God faithfully, and as such stands in danger of eternal damnation in hell if he doesn't repent. Now, if the bed sheets are produced and the blood is on them, meaning that the husband lied, what was the penalty for the husband? Well, first he was to pay 100 shekels of silver and give it to his bride's father, for in lying about his daughter, he brought shame on the father's house and on the name of a virgin in Israel. He was also banned from divorcing his wife as a penalty for bringing a bad name on her. Now you might ask, why would a woman want to remain married to a man who lied about her virginity? We must remember the times. Women generally didn't work outside the house. Being married was thus a way that a woman could ensure that she was properly taken care of. Then add to the fact that as a young woman, being a virgin was also expected. It might be hard for a woman to find another husband since she was no longer a virgin. As such, it was in her best interest to remain married to the man despite what he did to her. Under the New Testament, the only acceptable reason for divorce and remarriage is fornication that occurs after one is married. So if this situation arose today where a woman was found not to be a virgin on her wedding night, the man could not divorce his wife in any case and marry another without committing adultery, meaning that for us, this law doesn't apply. Verse 22 simply reiterates the seventh commandment against committing adultery, giving to us again the penalty, which was that both the man and the woman found guilty of such by the elders were to be put to death. This is why in John 8, Jesus didn't choose to execute the woman caught in adultery himself. He first called on the people who brought her that were without sin in this matter to cast the first stone. Because they had not brought the man as well, they knew they weren't without sin, and thus didn't stone the woman. And then, of course, for Jesus, he was neither a witness to the adultery nor a judge in Jerusalem, so he was not in a position to stone her either. Thus he told her to go and sin no more. Today we're still told not to commit adultery, and even though the penalty for doing so isn't death under the law of Christ, that doesn't mean that Christians can do such and be pleasing in God's sight. Let's therefore obey God in all things. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Deuteronomy chapter 22, verses 23 to 30, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.